Oh, really? Okay, I'll have a look at that. Yeah.
I'm interested.
Well, Richard, huge thank you for coming on. Do you have anything to say in conclusion to the viewers, or where they can support you and where they can find your books?
Well, I think you probably got some information. Don't you posted at the bottom of your screen, don't you, or something like that?
In the description box,
yes. Yeah. Well, read my books. Ignore my Twitter feed and read my books.
We will. You have a great rest of your evening then, wherever you are in the UK, Richard. Thank you.
And have a very Merry Christmas.
You too.
Have a great Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Thank you. Wow. What an interesting chap.
Hero.
Yes.
He might watch my exorcism film.
Really appreciate him coming on, and great questions. Absolutely great questions there, Andrew.
Oh, you too.
Yeah.
I was scared like we might run out of stuff.
The viewers were, the chat was very lively indeed. All right, we're bringing on now the most requested guest in the history of...
Hang on, I'm out of here, mate. Remember?
YouTube.
I'm out of here. Everybody follow my little channel on the Edge of Andrew Gold. I'll be back in, what is it, an hour and a half, 2 hours?
When he says he's out of here, he's going to be back. He's not done.
I'll be back. I won't click end stream. Is that what I click now? No. Right, I am out of it. I will see you all in a bit. Have fun, guys.
Cheers, Andrew. Thank you. Yep. Hope you're all enjoying it so far. Let's boot him out. Oh, and bring in Ryan D. Hey, brother, how's it going?
The most requested man that can't even use his real name. That's how it is with YouTube. You know, if you get a little too close to the truth, you get Julian Assanged.
Yes, indeed. I've had some situations, but even talking about those situations now gets you in trouble. So
yeah, I'm going to try to avoid a lot of things. I can't say anything because that's all I do is poke the bear. So
yeah. So for the minority of people who are not familiar with you on this channel, Ryan, do you just want to give a little summary of how you became an activist?
Well, this thing behind me that I can't say what it is, but there's a particular trial going on in New York right now that I'm dying to talk about that we can't talk about. But that's one of the things that got me going. That was about 14 years ago. And it's such a fascinating story. But back then it was hard to get people to believe that could happen. I don't know if I can even describe what that is, but
let's just keep it at that.
Let's just assume people know what that is, and that was one of the things. And obviously, the second Gulf War really triggered me because they were straight up lying about weapons of mass destruction, and I knew who they were, not just in a very specific way. And I was trying to tell people about the Office of Special Plans and this organization that was lying about that war, because that was not just government incompetence or something. Those were intentional deceptions with the Niger forgeries, yellow cake uranium, and all that. And then there was anthrax attacks and so on. And so it was just it never ended. And a lot of these people really never paid any consequences. I mean, Judith Miller went to jail for a little bit. Some of these people are in prison or died or didn't kill themselves. But and then I don't know. It's really I've really been an activist since I was about 10, when I was enraged about why we don't have line item vetoes and things. But it didn't matter when I was 10. But by the time I started college is when the internet and social media just started getting going, and so I finally had a place to do all these things that I never imagined. I thought, well, it doesn't matter what I know. I'll never be able to write an op-ed in my paper that 1,000 people read, maybe. But with the internet, in the beginning, things were taking off, and a lot of people were interested in what I had to say. And slowly, I was pretty much banned on everything from AOL to MySpace to Facebook to Twitter to YouTube to PayPal to Patreon to Vimeo to Live Leak, and even Pornhub banned me. I tried to put films there, thinking, well, they're for free speech. They look at the things they have, and nope. I am on Rumble. That was taken away for 9 weeks and then returned. And even YouTube returned me like 5 times. Because like if you can reach them, which is almost impossible, but if you can and get a person to look at it, they see I'm not actually violating any terms or anything. But it's just the people that want me to be silenced keep hurling accusations faster than you can correct them, right? And so I just gave up on it because I can't get anybody at YouTube anymore, and I can't physically fly there. That's what I had to do one time. I went to Dublin to their headquarters and to meet them in person because I couldn't reach anyone online, and got my channel back that way because of the Mexican beer that's going around. I can't fly to Ireland, or any other headquarters. And they don't have one in Japan, just where I live. So my channels are gone. But it's not I didn't actually violate any terms. It's just that doesn't matter. All you have to do is be accused of it. And I'm not alone in that. Lots of great people have been censored over nothing other than some groups don't like what they're saying. And it's the squeaky wheel gets the oil type of situation. Everybody has realized that you can get someone, no matter how large they are, banned on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook just by complaining enough. And accusation alone is all you need. You don't need evidence. That's why I think someone should sell cancellation insurance.
a lot of people are asking how, about your link. So all the links will be in the description box below the video. And regarding the M trial, the map there behind Ryan, you can contact him and purchase one of those as well. It helps to finance Ryan's work as an activist.
Yeah, this is the 2019 one. I have a 2021 one of that thing. Dying to tell you about some stuff.
Let's move over. Let's move over to assassinations of Russians purported to be performed by the Russian state, but you believe that it's a front for more malevolent interests. Is that the case?
In this particular instance, it's not like the Russian state doesn't kill people. They will, and they have. But in the case for Litvinenko, that's not what happened at all. And I think this is even worse than Russiagate as far as just the sheer stupidity of the lie. Russiagate is worse in the sense that went on for 3 years on all the American mass media, and the British media just sort of, America and Britain do not run their own media. And I'm not allowed to explain who does run their media, but like it's essentially organized crime. And you can't, the fact that you can't talk about it is all you need to know. But their press, just like when I was saying with the WMDs in Iraq, right? David Kelly is murdered. Julian Assange is in jail. Tony Blair lives in a mansion, right? Like, yeah, the people who lied on whatever network didn't get any consequences, and people who told the truth are either exiled or in prison or, financially ruined. And our press doesn't care. And with Litvinenko, it's a case, and I'd hate to quote the Bible right after Richard Dawkins, but I will. I don't think he'll mind. As a literary part, you could look at it in a secular way, but the word Satan is not...
yeah, we got to stay away from that word.
It's not a person. This is secular. It's just all it means is the accuser. Ryan? And what happens is accusing people of whatever you're guilty of yourself is something that a lot of people accept. And for example, part of Russiagate was saying that Donald Trump messed with prostitutes who peed on him. And the other part was saying they hacked Hillary's computer and released information that made her lose the election, which then became, they hacked the election. That's funny because Oh,
we need
you leaked
Ryan.
it? You can't go there either. Okay,
Ryan, yeah. We need to go
All
over
right.
to Litvinenko.
All right. Well, this related to Litvinenko in the sense
Who
that
was he? Who was Litvinenko?
he's an ex KGB guy, or which is now the FSB. He worked for Boris Berezovsky, who's one of the exiled Russian oligarchs, and so people should understand the history of the oligarchs in Russia real fast. Basically, when the Soviet Union collapsed, rather than having fair auctions with venture capitalists to take over the state assets, especially of materials wealth like metals and oil and things like that, they had all this rigging of appraisals and rigging of how these things were divvy out, false voucher scams, and a lot of white collar crime, to where a group of individuals who had heavy favoritism from Yegor Gaidor, who was the prime minister at the time. Yeltsin was pretty much a drunk who was also had cases of paranoia, and they knew how to feed into that. And he also needed the positive press that they had been able to enjoy as a Soviet state, where they completely controlled the media. That's what they really didn't want to let go of. And Boris Berezovsky is one of the guys that ends up with ORT, or Channel 1, which is the media. That was it. And did so by really giving positive press to Yeltsin and whatever he was doing. And then Yeltsin in kind would use his political power to protect Berezovsky from going to prison for a list too long to name. He had several. He also worked with Rupert Murdoch, who was a lot younger back then than he is now, who owns Sky News and Fox. He actually bailed him out when he got in trouble with Sibnef, which is now, you know it as Gazprom. But when Vladimir Putin came to power, they thought he was just this KGB guy that would go after the Chechens and clean up that mess, and he was just a military guy or something. And he obviously he was a lot more than that. And he got in and just went after all of them. He threw Mikhail Khodorkovsky in prison of Yukos Oil. He exiled several other oligarchs. Now, he didn't get everybody. Some of the ones who stayed or end up working for him, like the Praska, who I love this video of Putin inspecting a plant, and he just reads him the riot act, and he makes him sign this paper, and he's like, "Give me back my pen," to a billionaire. But he went in, he really shook things up and scared them all. But that made enemies of these people. Still had billions of dollars, and the majority of them went to either Britain or another country that you're not allowed to criticize, but it's west of Jordan. There's only one thing that west of Jordan, that place where has no extradition treaties. And they went on an anti-Putin screed, which still hasn't stopped. And so Litvinenko to Russiagate to, Trump having hookers pee on him or whatever. Something that was actually true about Hunter Biden. He lost 3 different laptops.
Yeah, we got to stay away.
I can't say that either. Yeah. Okay, that's
cool.
Let's
leave all American politicians' names out of it.
All right. Well, okay. It's true about a certain person's son who lost a laptop in a jacuzzi in Las Vegas with Russian hookers who actually did what they said happened to another former. I can't even do it. But anyway, yeah. A lot of the things they were accusing others of, they actually did. So with Ukraine and other accusations that went around, the ones saying it were actually guilty of doing it. And then the press was so eager to vilify Putin on anything that it doesn't seem like there's any scrutiny or fact checking at all. They're like, oh, Russia did it? Okay, then it has to be that. Litvinenko died in a really bizarre way from polonium-210, the element that Marie Curie discovered. Highly, highly toxic radioactive element. And they tried to say the Russian government went into England and poisoned a guy, an almost unheard of low-level critic, with polonium. Now, why would the Russian state use $10 million worth of a highly radioactive and traceable poison to get rid of a guy, and two of their own agents also get sick from it, right? Instead of just using, I don't know, ricin, sarin, any number of poisons, or shooting them, stabbing them, whatever. Nobody, no hitman in the history of the world is going to use polonium to poison somebody, because it's so expensive and you're going to get caught immediately because it's radioactive, and anywhere you went with it, they're going to know you were there, right? And so the media didn't care. They're like, oh yeah, that sounds right. The Russian state, and they said KGB, which no longer exists. I think they meant FSB, poisoned Litvinenko because he was a critic of Vladimir Putin. And they did it with polonium because reasons. They never even had an excuse for such a ridiculous plot, but that's what they said. And on the flip side, nobody else, no mafia, nobody else would even have the means to get hold of this stuff to poison somebody other than a state or very high level organized crime. You can't get $10 million worth of polonium and waste it all on putting it in someone's coffee cup or whatever. So the rational conclusion is he died in a botched smuggling operation, that he was smuggling polonium into the UK for whatever reason. I'll give you my idea later, and got overexposed to it and died. And then Berezovsky and co. had to come up with some scenario to explain, why does this guy have polonium and what was he trying to do with it? So they said, oh yeah, the Russians brought it in and they poisoned him with it. So anybody with a brain would see that and go, no, Russia did not use polonium to kill Litvinenko. That's just why. You could use so many other things in other ways, and that just doesn't make any sense. So you have to start looking at, where had this guy been, and what had he been involved in? Now, one of the things, one huge red flag, that the only person I saw writing about it who brought this up was Justin Raimondo, the chief editor of antiwar.com, who's now passed away, but he did write about it. There was a scandal where about 8 different mafia heads fell in this real estate scam in Spain, very similar to what the 5 families in New York had done in Florida with Lansky and co., where they were taking money from gambling and drug running and guns and taking that cash flow and putting it into legitimate businesses, mostly through real estate, and then washing the money and then putting it from there into whatever the properties were on, into franchises and stuff, to sort of get a legitimate revenue out of illegitimate revenue. And Litvinenko was the narc that helped put a lot of these people away. So he definitely had enemies. But still, and they could get polonium, these people, but they are not going to use that to murder somebody, when, for the same reasons I just named, the Russians wouldn't do it. It's too expensive, it's too ridiculous, and they're going to immediately know what you did and where he's been with it. But those are some of the people he had made angry. And so it starts ending up like the Kennedy case, where he's made everybody mad. So it's a whodunit kind of thing. But really, he was selling the polonium to get quick cash, because a lot of people were after him. He died of this smuggling operation. But the way that it got covered up actually helps reveal what was really going on, because he had polonium in the offices of Boris Berezovsky. So, of course, Berezovsky does a lot of hand waving and says, oh, yeah, they were trying to get me, too. Right? All of us, everywhere where there's polonium, that was all Russian. They're just trying to get us all. Right. It's, oh, yes, Boris, I'm sure that, you're the billionaire exile oligarch and they got Litvinenko instead of you. Like you're right. He's no longer alive either. He finally passed away a few years ago. It's on my calendar. But this Boris
we've got a question has come
go
in.
for it.
Questions come in, Ryan, from Matthew Steeples, who's going to be joining us at 7:30. I'll see if I can put this on the screen, actually. What are Ryan's views about the links between the late Boris Berezovsky and the late British businessman Scott Young?
I think that is also going to get into dangerous YouTube territory.
All right, let's just completely skip that then.
But
Thank
yeah,
you, Matthew. Thanks,
they're bad.
Matthew.
I'm sorry. I wrote about it. You can look on my Substack and hear the answer.
Matthew.
Yeah. It's not my channel, so I can't.
Okay, yeah. Avoid. Keep going
that
down.
one.
Keep
it's
going
that non-answer is your answer.
Yeah.
Because if there was nothing there, I'd be like, oh, there's nothing, but that's not what I said.
So my question is then, going back to what you said earlier, I mean, if you're a Russian billionaire and you've moved to London, how does this happen? Where have you come from? Where's all this money come from? Are you now an enemy of Putin, or has he allowed you to leave the country? All of a sudden you hear about all these Russian billionaires, settling in London. I'm just wondering what the history of that is, how it happened.
Well, I mean, you can either go there or Tel Aviv because they won't extradite you.
Oh, so it's non-extradition. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So they are enemies of Russia then.
Yes, they are. They are career criminals. But the UK has. They're not alone. I mean, the US is the same way, but they go there sometimes because a lot of the oligarchs' second language is English. So they go to an English-speaking country because that's somewhere they have Russian or English. So that's what they chose. But if they went to Canada or something like that, they'd get extradited. So they go to the UK because they're left alone in the UK, and they buy up football clubs and all these things and ingrain themselves, make sure their money's passed around enough to keep the British happy. So they, let it be. But Berezovsky is worse than Abramovich or any of these others because he was a serial killer. And this guy had done this same scenario with a man named Vladislav Litsev, where, I mean, he's busted red-handed doing a hit on the guy because the first mobster he approached to do it got arrested for something else he had done before he had a chance to do the hit. And the second person that he had an underling named Badri go and offer the guy $100,000 was an informant for the police. So, and then whoever he must have gotten a third person because Vladislav was shot in the back of the head down in a river. But I mean, he had already been caught bribing or attempting to bribe two people to do it, and then it ends up happening. And then what's he do? He goes to Yeltsin and says, it's a giant conspiracy. They're trying to frame me, blah, blah, blah. And the reason he was murdering this guy is this guy was threatening his monopoly over the press. And he actually had Boris Yeltsin do an executive order to force the shares that Boris didn't control to go over under his thumb, which allowed him to keep that. He had another incident called, y'all can look up Faces in the Snow with the Kaczynski group, 90-mile-an-hour car chase. People fortify themselves in their own building, and there's a big shootout and everything. And these are Boris's goons. I mean, the 1990s Russia there were mob wars with tanks and things. It wasn't like anything you see in some Italian mob movie or something. Like, please, the Russian mob was basically the military. It was because you had everything collapsing. You had the ruble was collapsed. The currency was nothing. Everybody's looking for foreign currency for its stability. So assets and guns and all these things are flying out of the country in order to get foreign cash because the inflation had wiped everything out. So one of the things they had a lot of were small arms. And so the arms flow out of the Soviet Union into, anybody who would buy it was massive. And this also ups human trafficking and, all the nasties, which relates to this. Because if you sell a girl or
let's stay away from
things
that.
like that,
let's stay away from
you
that,
got
please.
foreign capital, and that was a way of staving off the inflation crisis and other things. And so it became this global syndicate. And so other mob organized people, they all took advantage of this from wherever they're from. And it's a good thing someone like Vladimir Putin, who is definitely not an angel, but he is a Russian nationalist. So he does things in the interest of his own state rather than all these foreign players. And he saw what all people were doing and either put them in prison or they ran away. And they've been trying to extradite, but that's not going to happen. But with the press, which a lot of these oligarchs own, Murdoch, for example, is an ally. It's all negative Russian propaganda. And you saw that a lot with the war in Syria, where if not for the support from Russia and Iran, Syria would have collapsed Libya style under Al-Qaeda. But they have Russian anti-air defenses, which is odd because Al-Qaeda doesn't have an air force, but they keep attacking the AA because there's another state that acts as their air force. And that's the one state you're not allowed to talk about. But they're constantly bombing Latakia and Damascus and even Deir ez-Zor with American-made F-15s and 16s, but they have not been effective because of the military hardware given to Syria by the Russian state. That is one of the real reasons they hated Vladimir Putin, is he completely put a kibosh on the regional ambitions against the Middle East. And a lot of these Russian oligarchs are very loyal to a cause that is not within Russian interest, but is in the interest of a different state that is covertly given support and sponsorship and protection to these people, as they do to their own mafia in many countries around the world.
Let's go back to Russia then. So with the billions then that these guys take out of Russia and reinvest it in London, how do they get it out of the country? Couldn't Putin stop that? Is it just corrupt and bribery of the banks?
He did stop some of it, but like I was saying earlier, a lot of them had assets and cash flow outside of Russia in the first place, because getting foreign capital would allow you to buy up things within Russia. Because if you had dollars or something, then that was pretty stable. And if you owned oil, you'd already had dollar reserves, which would have been a smart thing, good thing to have that petrodollar then, because if you were basing it in rubles, it would have been completely useless. Because by the time it was, the old joke was, should I buy toilet paper or just wipe with rubles? Because you could have wheelbarrows full of this and it wouldn't matter. So most of them never really had their money in Russia anyway. They just owned Russian industries, which were selling material goods outside of Russia for foreign capital. So that's why it was valuable. You could still sell oil. You could still sell nickel or timber, and the Russian economy is still like that. It sells all these raw resources and makes very few finished products, even now. If they were to change that, they would be a mega superpower. But there was a brain drain that went with it too, and so it's a really hard thing to fix. But it was hard for Putin to stop, something that when it's a foreign bank and a foreign everything. He could stop the flow back into Russia, but then the oligarch is left there too, right? So there isn't much he could do, and you have a limit how long you can be president. Now he flip-flopped between president, prime minister, president, things like that. But they love him over there. The media, I've never seen anybody outside of Iran maybe that is more hated than Vladimir Putin. But the Western press, they hated Gaddafi, they hated Saddam, they hate Assad, they hate Putin, they hate anybody that threatens the global hegemony of U.S. power.
So do you believe that the Russians or the Russian mafia are involved in the drug trade? And for the purposes of these conversations, we're using the words white, brown, and green rather than describing the products.
Okay. Oh yeah, they're involved. they
which color are they involved in mostly? Do you know?
Mostly, like, where do they get the most money?
No. Which color product would that be? The white, the brown, or the green?
Probably white. Most of their money they made through white collar crime and obviously the arms industry, because there was, you know, it's such a lucrative product, and what else you gonna do with it? You know, you've lost the Cold War. Where do these things end up, right? But with the drugs, a lot of it's middlemen too. But the I can't. What can I say? One of those things is sometimes white, sometimes brown, depending on the quality. But that one, which has been surpassed by another thing that comes as liquid form, mostly from China. But guess who the main purchaser is? It's the United States and Britain, especially with the one that goes in your arm. Britain got hit with that really bad. And they say, oh, isn't that from Turkey? I'm like, well, that's the transit place, but that isn't where it started. It starts in Afghanistan. And, you know, that prior to that, it was Vietnam. And gosh, which country occupied both places for one for 10 years, one for 20? So
the Afghanistan trade in brown then, under Russian occupation, did that go up as much as it has under US occupation?
Oh no, the US mastered that. I mean, they really surpassed the Russians on that one, because there's nobody to police the United States. Like, at least when the Russians did it, it had to be really black market and underground, and, you know, grease a lot of palms to get the flow going. America would just put it on FedEx planes and bring it right into Newark Airport, New Jersey, and distribute it no problem. If you've been to that airport, it looks like the Taj Mahal, by the way. I mean, because they were willing a partner in that trafficking of that, and also of white.
All right. So Matthew Steeples has just sent another question in. Let's see if this is a safe one. It's on the screen now. What does Ryan think about the situation between Putin, an exiled ex-London-based financier oligarch, Alexei Pugachev, ex-partner of socialite Alexandra Tolstoy?
He's trying to get us kamikaze, didn't he? I can't say that.
This is another one that we're going to have to avoid then, is it?
Let's see. Yeah, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to. Yeah. I have to do this ad lib too. I have to think of a way to dodge all the landmines without tripping on something. But nothing good. Again, I encourage you to go to my Substack articles, and I've got in my article, I have links to lots of other articles that dig into all that stuff, and it's really fascinating. Like, I love studying organized crime, and that's what these people are. When you're like, oh, this or this businessman, I'm like, yeah, businessman.
So we've got about 15 minutes or so left. You've done a lot of work and research on is it the Kennedy's assassinations?
Oh yes, both.
We recently had Tim Tate on the podcast, and he's been researching the RFK assassination now for, I think, almost 30 years. And the bullets just completely didn't add up on that day. There was way more shots fired than he had in his gun from a further distance than he was stood.
Yeah, you often fire a 8-shot revolver 13 times in front of somebody and hit them 3 times in the back. No, Thane Eugene Caesar shot RFK point blank and fled to the Philippines and died a year ago. I mean, that's who did that. That was simple.
Who was that person? Who was Eugene? What was his
background? He worked for Ace Security for all of a day, but it was Thane Caesar was just a hitman hired by Ace, but it was run by John Alessio. And I mean, it's a long story, but that's another New Jersey mobster that came over to the West Coast, and they murdered him the day he won the primaries in California. I mean, it was on the anniversary of the 6-Day War, which was one of the reasons his brother was killed. And Sirhan was such a patsy. I mean, they had a newspaper about Foreign Country A in his back pocket in case he was taken down during the event. They still have his motive written there. They had this ridiculous notebook that was just like kill, 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 die, die, die. And he's talking about Frank Donaramas, who's another mobster. He worked at the Corona breeding farms. He was like $28,000 in debt to the mob. So they had this Palestinian Christian drugged out of his mind, just there with a gun. He got tackled right away. John Pilger was there, and the man next to him got shot.
Do you think they put the drug in his coffee? Was it? Didn't he stop for a coffee with a woman in the polka dot woman?
It doesn't really matter. Like, oh no, that polka dot dress stuff is a swerve. That whole thing, and that's like, oh, is it MK Ultra? Like, don't even listen to that. That notebook was he didn't write any of it. I mean, that was sort of the psychological fad at the time in Hollywood. Like, this is what a crazy person's like. They scribble in a notebook, die, die, die 100 times. And that no one does that. Like, you know, true crime, like nobody does that. That is Hollywood. Right. But that's what they did, because that was what they thought people like that were like based on movies. This is how stupid it was. But that whole notebook was not his notebook. They just said, "Oh, this is Sirhan's notebook. Look at it. It looks like The Shining." You know, where Jack said, it was so over the top. And then, of course, it's a Palestinian. You know, they blame it on a Palestinian guy because the Thane is working for the group that really hates Palestinians, as was JFK's killers, where. I mean, yeah, he's inspecting Dimona. I mean, RFK was the head of the Justice Department that actually sent John Hayden over. They test the flora and fauna outside Dimona, Israel, and find 97% enriched uranium, which only existed in one place, the United States, from the Nautilus program that they use on nuclear submarines. And lo and behold, we have missing uranium out of Apollo, Pennsylvania, from NUMEC that, you know, Raphael Adenton and Zalman Shapiro and these people would set up their operation to steal uranium from the United States. It's coming out of the crates in the docks in New York run by Lansky. And what they would do is
what was the cover up in the aftermath of the RFK assassination?
They blamed the whole thing on Sirhan and just said, you know, he wanted to kill Robert Kennedy because he supported giving fighter jets to Israel or something. Like, Robert Kennedy supported Palestinian right of return. He was against Israel having nuclear weapons.
Let's not talk about that country.
Desegregation. Like, he was, you know, yeah. You can't say why the Kennedys were killed on YouTube. Like, you can say all the ridiculous stuff all day, but when you start getting toward the truth of it, you can't. But it was Alessio's group. And
who else was assassinated around that time?
Martin Luther King got killed by the FBI, and they blame that on Patsy. And I guess Malcolm X. I'm not sure about him. I think that is what they said it was, but they definitely killed Martin Luther King and both Kennedys. But different culprits there. MKL was killed for entirely different reasons by the U.S. government, but the Kennedys were killed by organized crime. That's who pulled the trigger, but that wasn't who was. That's not. They didn't direct it, but they had overlapping interests because they lost $1 billion a year in Cuba when Castro came in and shut down all the casinos and things, because they had a working relationship with Batista, Coco Cabana, and all these things. These Santos Traficante and a lot of these mobsters were making bank off Cubans, and Cuba was one of the places that they were diverting weapons to go to foreign country A. And part of the reason, because the classic Kennedy thing is, oh, he didn't give air support to the Bay of Pigs, so the CIA did it, or whatever. No, there was air support, and it was Bowman that sent that, not Kennedy, and it did arrive, and it got all but 2 planes. there was no ground support. And there was no ground support because the anti-Castro Cubans, the CIA said they didn't have weapons because they had been diverted to place. And that's something, a network they had in place for a long time from the Sonborn Institute onward, where they were diverting guns and uranium and other material to foreign country A. And that is the group, the 2.0 version of it is, as you know, the mega group. Which,
all right, yeah, we can't talk about that. Can't talk about that.
I know.
We're gonna bring in Charlie Robinson, and I'm gonna let you guys have a chat. But let's keep it away from all of the things I'm about to intervene.
Charlie, well, I'll wait till he gets on because he's gonna laugh when I say that.
Yeah. So, have you collaborated with Charlie on other? Times over time?
Charlie knows a good friend of mine named Corey Hughes, who I'm sure talks his ear off about the Kennedy assassinations, because I think he said to me on here one time, he's like, yeah, Corey will dig into your stuff and then I have to hear it like hours and hours about the Kennedys, and him losing his mind because that dude JFK is so deep. It is they're never going to release all those documents. It would bring everything down. It is every most powerful person was in on that.
Didn't they ban the documents from being open for another 50 years or something?
Yeah. The ones that Trump released though are very damning, and it was just a slither of it, but it was enough. And the press didn't care. It's like, okay, you've been asking for these since 1963, and here is enough of them. And it was just radio silence. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, they're just telling you who their backers are, and they didn't care. And oh my God, there's so much obvious evidence about what happened to JFK, but it's just like 9/11. The amount of kook stuff that came out, is overwhelming. And the same thing happened September 11th. Like, that's not a hard thing to figure out, but you get all these people denying airplanes and blah, 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 and obsessed with the physics of the building. And it's just like the magic bullet and how, they're obsessed with that bullet. I mean, who cares about that bullet? Like, you don't need Dealey Plaza at all to figure out what happened to JFK, but that's what they go on and on. Dude, you are dressed in the Christmas spirit.
Oh, look at that, man. Wow. That is impressive.
I was telling them about Corey. Does he ever talk about JFK?
Does he ever not talk about it?
I get these long Skype messages that are like half a book. I'm like, I know, dude. Like, I already did this 10 years ago.
I know, but he runs everything by you. He's like, I feel like if I can get it pretty close to being right, then Ryan will tell me that I'm fully right. So he thinks, or he assumes that you have it all figured out, and that if he gives you the right answers on the test, that you'll give him an A.
He knows who did what, but he's trying to find out like why and how part. And I'm like, if he goes way off, I'll steer him back on, but I won't tell him the answer. And I gave him a choice. I'm like, do you want to know the answer, or do you want to figure this out? Because I want to figure this out, because it's like the greatest puzzle of all time, right?
Oh yeah. So
I said, okay. And he really appreciates me like not giving him hints. He's like, man, you just won't say anything, will you? I'm like, no, I told you, I said, I'm only going to give you, because I don't like telling it. It took me 10 years to figure that out. And I'm kind of like, I'm not just going to say blah, shot him from the grassy knoll. Like, you got to figure that out, buddy.
You got to earn it.
That information's worth something,
What research have you done, Charlie, on the Kennedy assassinations?
Not much, to be honest, because I felt like that. I was always interested in it. Don't get me wrong, but there were so many other people out there doing it, and they were taking it in different directions. I never felt like I had any sort of special take on anything. I have a deep interest in it. It's fascinating, and I consider that sort of like the crossroads of like a real important jumping off point for America from that day on, where it just seems like everything changed. So it's got to be one of the most important events in American history, maybe the most important event, not necessarily just the event itself, which was traumatizing and deeply hurtful to America, but everything that happened as a result of that, the direction that we went, that the whole country just sort of veered off course after that, makes it even more important than the event itself. And the event itself is of course deeply important. So, do
you want to just tell the viewers a little bit about where they can find you online, Charlie?
Sure.
You're always getting banned as well, aren't you?
Yeah, and I try not to, but I also recognize that that's sort of part of it. The best place for people to find me is my website, theoctopusofglobalcontrol.com. From there, you can find information about, I've written 3 books, and you can find the podcast Macroaggressions. That goes out in audio format wherever podcasts are available. It goes out in video format on David Icke's platform, Iconic. It goes out on Rockfin. It goes out on YouTube, depending on the guest, and then an Odysee as well. So
I'm trying to steer Ryan away from certain subject areas, and you've sent in
good luck.
You've sent in some topics of discussion. So perhaps
he brought up David too. That's a landmine. He's that guy.
We're talking about 2022 money and society. What do you mean by that, Charlie? And let's see how Ryan can contribute to that.
Well, we were just talking about, you get to the end of the year, you can do a couple things. You can wrap up the current year you've just gone through, and then you can predict based on what you're seeing so far where things are going to go in terms of the coming year. And I think everybody's radar is off a little bit because things are so wacky and unpredictable, and the wrong people are in charge, that it's hard to sort of look at it with like, oh, well, logic and common sense would say that we go this direction. Man, throw all that out, because you never know what's going to really be happening. You've got sociopaths that seem like they're losing control of the narratives. That makes them like, it weakens their narrative, but at the same time makes them dangerous, because that they're desperately trying to keep this thing going, and if they feel like they're losing control of it, they're liable to do anything. So we were talking, and I want to keep it on topics that won't get you in trouble. So we'll stay off of the main one. But we were talking about directions that things look like they're headed. After 2021, we've got a real, like, in terms of society, we've got this this battle between a very small segment of the population that is really interested and identifies with this woke component. Everybody has to be equal, and everybody has to be on a level playing field, and you're not allowed to. You have to pretend like there aren't different colors of human beings out there, and I don't see color, and
no,
so
the opposite. You have to define everybody by a color, and every category has to have equal outcome.
Right. We're getting back in America. We're getting back to they had an event that happened here where I am in Colorado. At least it was advertised last week that they were going to have a meetup that was only for African American families so that they can get together. And it's like, what are we doing? We're going back to segregated schools and things like that. So this sort of overreaction
where right overlap on that point. They define people by biology. Both groups do, right? And it's like, this comedian Ryan Long did a great skit called The Racist versus the Anti-Racist, where they agree on everything.
Let's be careful here. Be careful.
Yeah, it's a comedy sketch, but it's like, the far left and far right love to define people by their racial or sexual category, whereas normal people, it doesn't matter any more than are you right or left-handed, who cares, right? But They care. They're like, well, do we have enough left-handed, green-eyed, balding, blah, 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 blahs? Who knows? Why does it matter? But they would use different categories, but just
do you guys think that trend is going to continue into 2022 then? It's going to get more extreme?
Well, there's a lot of people that have no appetite for it. Like, it feels like it's forced. It feels like if it were up to the media, if you just chose to look at things through the lens of the American corporate media, it seems like it's everywhere. It seems like everybody's into this, that everybody has pronouns in their bio, and that this is all normal and nothing to see here.
Look at things through the lens.
When you talk to regular, normal people, they see that and they go,
like it's everywhere.
I'm not doing any of this. I don't
Seems like
like it. I'm not
everybody-
participating. I don't care. So I think that the vast majority of people out there have no interest in the woke stuff. Corporations are starting to see it reflected in their lack of attention or their bottom line. They look at the ratings for NBA games, and they look at the ratings for movies that have come out and television shows. They're in the toilet.
There was a canary in the coal mine
Grammys.
too.
Nobody wants this stuff. A guy goes out there and accepts his Oscar and then gives a 2-minute lecture about how we all need to be gender neutral and inclusive, and everyone's just like, we're not interested in this. So it's going to be, they're trying to force it, but so it's very unnatural. And when it's something like that is unnatural, it doesn't seem to really last all that long. So my prediction is that as we move into 2022, corporations are just going to say, well, listen, it's like our business, our sales are down because of this, or our ratings are down, or our viewership is down. Like, we're not interested. Get woke, go broke. Yeah, that's kind of a thing. So I think that people are going to wake up to that, and hopefully we're trending towards the end of this insanity.
Yeah, the clap is coming, and you could kind of see that with the Virginia election, as well as we now have a Senate president in New Jersey who was a trucker that spent like $500 on his entire campaign.
Right.
They just wanted to get rid of the woke. They're like, anybody associated with the current guy, I can say, is dead. And Virginia's gone red again. Not only the governor, but the lieutenant governor and the AG, they all went Republican. And it's that way because they were voting against the wokeness more than they were voting for anything else. And so you can pretty much guarantee the entire South is going to be red if Virginia's red.
Yeah.
And when you see what was happening in New Hampshire, New Jersey, like the Northeast, which are usually blue states, and no, they weren't. I mean, so this 2022 is just going to be a red wave, and it's going to be a reaction to these woke politics, because nobody wants to put up with that. There's the perception from social media and the media that crams it down your throat, but you talk to people on the ground and they are over it. And it's 33% of Latinos are only voting Democrat now. The rest are voting Republican. So without that community, Democrats are going to lose hard. But they pushed everyone out by defining people by biological categories. That's the complete antithesis of Martin Luther King's dream of not having color, right? And the same stuff with all the sexual things. Like, man,
stay away from the sex. Let's stay away from the sexual.
Yeah, we can't even say it. But see what I mean? Like, we can't even say that, and people are over it.
People like Jordan Peterson then seem to be spearheading the opposite philosophy. What do you guys think of him?
I think he often is figuring out what he's saying as he's saying it, and he's like surrounded by like college freshmen, so you look smart when you're talking to 20-year-olds all the time. But I like him as a guy. I think especially in Canada, where it's really almost as draconian as Australia, the fact that he was like, no, I'm going to use the traditional pronouns was an act of rebellion, right? But some of the stuff he says, not my cup of tea. Like, he's still far left in my opinion, but at least he's really good at smashing low-hanging fruit.
Charlie,
he's had an epiphany with the thing that we must not speak about, of course.
Yeah.
Where he said, I bowed down, I did what you asked me to do, and then you turned on me. So
yeah, another guy had that epiphany, the old Don.
Yeah.
He couldn't understand. I put out that cartoon, that story of the frog and the scorpion or whatever. Why'd you sting me in the middle of that? Was him, and Netanyahu's the scorpion. I was like, why'd you sting me, Mr. Scorpion? Like, what'd you think he was gonna do?
Yeah.
Right, we're at the hour, so we're gonna have to say goodbye to Ryan. So if you want to support his work, all the links will be in the description box below this video. And if you want one of those lovely maps, his latest generation map about the M trial, then please contact him. And buying those maps supports his activism, and he's doing a hell of a good job. I mean,
that's about all we got left. Shuan, your new book is excellent, by the way. Props to you for that. And and I thank
can't
you
even
for
say that. I can't even say that book title.
I did just said the new book, but Sean's got a new book. It's on my website. You can get it through there. I haven't been banned from Amazon. That's the only major, knock on wood.
Day's not over yet.
Yeah, exactly. That I haven't gotten kicked off of yet. But yeah, please do get a map. I have this one. I have some other interesting maps. One on the Anthrax 9/11. Another one on. Can I even say that the current president of the United States is a crime syndicate? That's in there, and we have calendars. This is the 2022 one, and what I do in my calendars, besides having hot Asian ladies, which is because I live in Japan and that's what's available. No, I'm not favoring anything, but it's got this day in history, except for truthful. So you could say, oh, like. January 6th is when New York tried to secede from the Union. A lot of people didn't know during the Civil War that New York almost joined the South. Little things that you're like, oh, that's interesting. All throughout the months of different political histories and things. And we also have our own holidays. So Peter Nygaard gets arrested. It's like, hooray. I made holidays out of like anytime like some really horrible person gets thrown in jail, it's got like a dancing rainbow frog, and you'll definitely laugh. And I think everyone will enjoy the ladies as well. So that's up there. And I got to peddle my wares because I'm not allowed on Patreon or PayPal or any of that, but we do have the maps and calendar, and I do have a Substack. I think they're okay. Haven't been banned on Substack yet. So please join Substack while we have it. hopefully they'll leave it alone. Yeah,
I can't wait for Nygaard November, man. That's my favorite month of the year.
What's Christmas like in Japan?
Oh, it's very different. It's more like it's kind of like Valentine's Day. It's more for couples than it is for children. So they do what's called the Illuminati, which just means illumination. That's all it means. Just means illumination. They put Christmas lights all over certain parts of the city, and they really decorate it out. And couples go there for viewings and have hot wine or sake and look at the lights. And they kind of have snowmen and Santa and stuff, but they don't really know like the stories or anything. It's just there, like decorations. But it's more of like a romance time. And it's also the emperor before the one we have now was born December 23rd. So they combine that whole, it's like a long holiday. 3 days without school is a big deal in Japan because they just go to school every day. So people are out of college, kids are out of school, very happy about that. And they sort of play Christmas movies and stuff, but they even had like The Nightmare Before Christmas as a Christmas movie. So if you ever seen how like what do they call, like vampires and stuff did Halloween and they didn't really know what they were doing in The Nightmare Before Christmas, that's kind of how Japan does Christmas. Like there's no nativity scenes or any of that. They do like Christmas trees though, and so you can get those, and they love the Christmas lights. But I would compare it more to like a hybrid Valentine's Thanksgiving. Like you have a turkey which doesn't exist except from Costco, so they are all pumping those out, and you decorate things, and you go out and have couples day. And if you're ever in Japan, you want to get here near Christmas because every girl is looking to have somebody to celebrate Christmas with and go see the lights with. So there you go.
Well, you have a great Christmas, Ryan, with your sake, and look forward to collaborating.
Well, we're doing the toys with my 3 kids. We're doing the whole Santa everything. So
oh, fantastic.
But I will have some sake as well. I'll tell you all the good things from all the cultures and do it all at once.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today, and you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me on. You're the best. You're really helping us stay afloat.
Yeah, cheers, Ryan. All right, take care, brother. Thank you.
Take care. You too, Charlie. See
you, Ryan.
All right. I don't think Charlie's going to make me sweat as much as Ryan, but let's
well, maybe.
You never know.
I